The dangerous love ritual. Harley and Andy had known each other since they were both very young. Even though Andy was a year apart from her, Harley always felt like she was the oldest because she would always get them out of trouble when they did something wrong. But there were days that weren't always filled with them getting in trouble. Like most friends, they had great times together. They both loved telling each other scary stories about spells and curses. They would climb onto Harley's roof and spend countless hours talking and laughing about what they would want to do when they grew up. "Andy, when you grow up, will you ever get married?" asked Harley. Andy shrugged. "Who knows? It's a long time from now. But hey, if I'm lucky, you'll grow up to be very beautiful. And then I'll get the chance to marry you." Being only 9 years old, Harley was overjoyed that her best friend said that. She wanted Andy to always be in her life, and having him as a husband was one of her greatest dreams. She wanted to stay with him forever and love him for the rest of her life. Little did they know that their love would come with a price. 10 years later, our boy and girl are grown up now. Andy is now 20 years old. Long shoulder-length black hair, an eyebrow and ear piercing. Dresses mostly in black band shirts, ripped jeans, and black or gray worn Converse. He's very tall and a very good student. A senior. Drives a motorcycle and is considered a rebel because of his looks. As for our little Harley, who is now 19 years old and a junior, is about 5'2" inches tall, long gorgeous jet black hair with light purple and green highlights, a lip piercing, and she can usually be found wearing a black and white checkered skirt with a black tank top, combat boots, or a knee-length black and red striped dress. Now that they were both in high school together, Andy and Harley still remained best friends. And others kept asking, "Are you two a couple?" And each time they both would give the same reply, "No, we're just friends." But secretly, every time someone would ask that question, Harley wanted to say, "Yes, we are. We are so in love." But she knew that Andy never would accept her feelings, and losing her friendship with him is what scared her the most than anything. But she still had hope in her heart, because even though Andy was popular among all the girls in the school, he didn't seem to have an attraction towards any of them, so he didn't have a girlfriend. Later that day, when school was over, Harley said goodbye to her friends and started walking home. Her house was about 2 blocks from the school, but she didn't mind walking. When she was about halfway there, she heard the sound of Andy's motorcycle behind her. She smiled and quickly turned around. "Hey, Harles, want to go with me to get my first tattoo?" asked Andy. "Since when have you been interested in getting a tattoo?" she asked. Andy shrugged. "I don't think it will make me look cool." Harley laughed at her silly best friend and got on the back of the motorcycle as they both sped away towards the tattoo parlor. When they both got there, they were both disappointed to see that the parlor was closed. "Well, damn, that sucks," said Andy. There, there will be other chances," said Harley as she hugged him from the back, so desperately wanting to feel him hold her in his arms. "How can I tell him how I really feel about him? I know he told me once that if I was lucky that he'd marry me. Even if we were just kids, I want to believe that he meant it." While Harley was having these thoughts, Andy was eyeing a nearby store. He looked up at the store sign. It read, "The Black Heart. Spells, potions, and fortunes sold and told." By the looks of it, it looked like a store that didn't get many visitors, but for some reason the store seemed to draw Andy to it. "Hey, Harles, you're right. Who needs the tattoo place? Let's go inside there." Harley quickly snapped out of her thoughts and looked to see where Andy wanted to go. She could see why he wanted to go in a dark and deserted place like that. Once they stepped inside, they were surrounded by the smell of scented candles and incense. Big, worn-out books were on the shelves, and glass bottles with strange liquids were on the counters and tabletops. "Wow. Do you think all of this is real?" asked Harley in an amazed and almost speechless voice. But before Andy could answer her, a calm yet sassy voice answered, "Of course it's real." Both of the friends turned around to see who had said that. It was a strange but beautiful-looking woman, who seemed to be in her late 30s. She had dark gray and black hair that almost looked silver in the candlelight. It was tied up in a bun, wrapped in a green bandana with skulls on it. Her skin was slightly tan, her eyes were a piercing light blue color, surrounded by heavy black makeup. Long silver skull and bow chain earrings hang from her ears. Her nails were almost pointed and painted a deep reddish color, and she was dressed in a long black and green dress that exposed a lot of her cleavage. "What can I help the two of you with?" she asked in a bittersweet tone. "We just wanted to come in and see your fantastic store, ma'am. May we have a look around?" asked Harley, trying to sound polite. Both Andy and Harley expected her to get mad and tell them to go away, but instead she just smiled and lit more candles. "Welcome, my dears. I am Madame Grevillea." FYI, Grevillea is the name of a poisonous red flower. Anyway, and who of the two might you be?" she asked. "I'm Harley Davidson, and this is my best friend, Andy Blackville." "Nice to meet both of you," she said to Harley. After a while, Harley looked around the store. She was very fascinated by the books. As for Andy, he was interested in something else. "Can I get my fortune read, Madame Grevillea?" he asked. He sat at her table. "Of course, dear. Please, let me see your right hand." Andy slowly held out his hand and tried his best not to shiver as Madame Grevillea's long nails touched his skin. "From what I can see, Andy, death is following you. A great tragedy will take your life, but I also see that the love of your life will find a way to help you cheat death." Once Andy heard that, he jumped up from the table and looked at Madame Grevillea with an angry look, but said nothing to her. Harley, who was too busy looking at the books of spells and rituals, didn't hear anything. "Come on, Harley, we're leaving," said Andy as he stormed past her and out of the shop. "I hope I didn't upset your boyfriend. That wasn't my intention at all, dear," said Madame Grevillea. "Oh, he's not my boyfriend, just a really good friend," said Harley, who started to blush. From outside the shop, she could hear the revving of Andy's bike as a way of telling her to hurry up. "Goodbye, Madame Grevillea. Thank you for letting us in," said Harley before she put a book that she was reading down on the table. Once she was sure that the two teenagers were gone, Madame Grevillea picked up the book that Harley was reading and looked at the page that she had left off at. Once she read the page, a sly smirk came across her lips. It was a ritual of making anyone fall in love with anyone they pleased. Just friends, huh? This'll be very interesting. Meanwhile, Andy and Harley were speeding away, silently lost in their own thoughts. "What's wrong, Andy? Why do you want to leave so fast?" asked Harley, breaking the silence. Andy didn't answer her until he completely stopped in front of her house. "She read my fortune, Harley. She said that death is coming for me, that I'll die in a tragic accident." Just hearing that made Harley's heart burst and start beating at a rapid rate. Warm tears started to form in her eyes. But she said that my true love would help me find a way to cheat death. "Not really sure what that means, though," said Andy as he turned around to face her. Harley quickly blinked away the tears and decided to make a bold move. She grabbed Andy's hand and held it tight. "Maybe your true love is someone you just didn't expect," she said as she looked Andy straight in the eye. For a while, everything was silent, and the two teenagers were just sat there, not once breaking eye contact with each other. Harley was about to let go and pull away when suddenly Andy leaned in closer and kissed her. Leaned in and closed his eyes, expecting the kiss that she had waited so long for. Harley closed her eyes too, but when she opened them once again, Andy's lips were on her cheek. At this point, Harley had mixed emotions of embarrassment and shock. When Andy pulled away, he ran a hand through her hair, then brought her in for a very tight hug. "Good night. Be careful on your way home," Harley said when she got off Andy's motorcycle. "See you later, Harles," said Andy with a wink as he sped away. As she walked inside, Harley put her hand on her cheek. She could still feel Andy's warm, soft lips. She sighed. "If only I could feel the warmness on my lips," she thought to herself as she went inside. That night, instead of sleeping peacefully, Harley tossed and turned and as strange images started to enter her mind, causing her to have a nightmare. In her nightmare, Harley was standing across the street from the tattoo parlor, wearing a white dress. Suddenly it began to rain. Harley looked all around for a place to stay dry from the rain, but there weren't any. Through the rain she saw Andy coming out of the shop with a new tattoo of a black cross with a beautiful design with black fire and skeletons. It was tattooed on his arm and over his bicep, and looked amazing. So amazing that Harley had to stop herself from running across the street and feeling the hot, irritated, ink-stained skin on her fingers. "Andy! Hey, Andy!" she called out loud as she could, but for some odd reason Andy couldn't hear her, or see her, but she still continued to call out to him, even when he got on his motorcycle and started to rev it up. Harley was about to stop calling him and go up to him instead, but someone else was slowly making their way towards Andy. As that person got closer, Harley saw that he was dressed in a long black robe with a hood over his head, and his long, bony fingers were wrapped around a long, sharp scythe. Harley gasped. This was death, and he was coming for Andy. "Andy! Look out! Please don't take him!" Harley screamed as loud as she could, but Andy sped off on his motorcycle, not even noticing her. Harley watched in horror as Andy flipped over on his motorcycle and caught fire. Her best friend's body lay there lifeless in the street, burned and broken. Harley fell to her knees crying and breathing heavily. She looked up once again to see Death smiling evilly at her as he stood over Andy's body. "No! Don't take him!"